Hey, how's it going, everyone? So this is what I would deem as the necessary setup for Google Ads lead gen in 2026. And by setup, I mean how are we feeding back information to the algorithm. So if you have any questions about, hey, how do I know I'm pumping in the right data? Do I have another area that I can get advantage of because search maybe these different changes of keywords are maybe working, but I've kind of maxed out on strategies? Well, this is an entirely new way that I've been doing it for quite a while now that I still feel a lot of people need to get reminded of, because this is sort of a different level of how you can sort of play with the algorithm. So over here, we have the algorithm in itself, right? So this is sort of represents the reach that the algorithm has across the ecosystem when it starts out. And then if we have this outer circle or ring, I guess you can say, this represents the easier to convert kind of range, right? So if we're going from like the circle to the outer circle, this represents how easy it is for the algorithm to sort of convert these types of actions. So you'll see right here that chat forms or a lead magnet, it really just depends on your business, is very easy to convert, right? So I'd put this as a very close to what the Google algorithm can kind of latch onto right away. If we were to go to, let's say one of these other ones, we have a standard lead form or a standard phone call. So this standard represents sort of like an unqualified phone call. So let's just say this is like a 60-second phone call, or the lead form is someone that filled out all the information that's more than just a lead magnet for like a free estimate. And then if we go further out, we have a qualified lead form or qualified standard lead form versus a rated phone call, right? Or a qualified phone call. In fact, I'll even add in this. Okay, so the reason why I have this is because this is going to affect how your account is going to look. And this is why it's so important to view Google as, or at least Google Ads, as a mechanism or a tool versus a reporting system. A lot of people are still kind of the mindset of my CPA inside of Google is, going up, that's bad. My CPA is going down, that's good, kind of thing. Or I'm getting more conversions, that's good. I'm getting less conversions, that's bad. Not the case. And the reason why that's not the case is because when we're thinking about how an algorithm functions, more chat forms doesn't necessarily mean more sales for the business. And at the end of the day, businesses want to get sales, right? You're not trying to just get more conversions. You're trying to get more sales. So if I'm getting a lot more chat forms and I have 1,000 chat forms, so my overall ROAS or my overall CPA looks amazing in the platform, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's translating over for the business. And what'll happen too with this is, since it's so easy to get these chat forms, it'll probably start to lean more into spam, even if you're only pushing on search. So this is why I always laugh whenever I see people that post stuff about like Google Ads and look at my CPA or look at my ROAS, is because it doesn't necessarily give you the actual health of the business. It just gives you what you're feeding back to the algorithm. That could be someone that just lands on the landing page. That could be any sort of thing that you deem as a action that is not necessarily a good or qualified action for the business. So if we were to go further up and we kind of lean into sort of where I would say the majority of people are, they're in the regular phone calls, 60 seconds and then they hang up, or, it is a lead, isn't lead, 60 seconds plus is sort of the base time frame. Or we have a lead form that someone's like, hey, I submitted a lead form for a free estimate and I went on the website and converted, kind of thing, or went to the thank you page, and that counts it now as a conversion, right? So we have lead forms and phone calls. This is where most people lie, and this is also where a lot of issues occur when it comes to pushing data back into the algorithm. So as you can see here, this is kind of in the area where things are easy to convert. And easy to convert does not necessarily mean good. And the reason why I say this is because when things are easier to convert, the algorithm will tend to latch onto any type of signal that similar users are going to be giving, right? So if there is a lot more volume, meaning that it's cheaper to get let's just say a lead form first. Let's focus on that. And I have a lot of, let's say out of, 1 out of every 10 users is qualified out of those 10. The reason why those other 9 are not qualified is because no one else wants to pay for that data, or it's bot traffic, or it's very unqualified leads. And the reason for that is because there's people that are just price shopping around. They don't really know what they want. They may be landing on the wrong site and they just filled something out. No idea. You'd be surprised how, crazy it is where people might go to a competitor's, you type in a competitor term and then fill out a form on your website, seeing your website and everything, but then it actually still being someone that's looking for a competitor, and then you call them back like, no, I didn't fill out a form, but then they actually did. It's just not for you. They thought it was for someone else. So, and that goes into the keyword thing. But besides the point, the whole idea behind this is that we don't necessarily want to feed this data back to Google. We want to feed back only qualified standard lead forms and qualified phone calls, or some form of validation saying that this is a good qualified lead. Whether they convert that lead is not necessarily as much up to the marketing as it is up to the sales team at that point, right? So in my view, that's kind of the handoff process for most businesses. Now, I know that B2B, there might need to be some more follow-up. There might need to be a longer process of educating and trying to build out, the client to understand them. Like, for example, this YouTube video. I'm doing this for the reach of organic, as well as just to give more context as to what my strategies are, so then clients can say, hey, here's a video, check it out, kind of thing, right? So there's different levels to this when it comes to educating and sort of building your own funnel. But when it comes to baseline just search, trying to, let's say, find your local plumber kind of deal, this is a very, very good way to start. Now, B2B is obviously gonna, be a little bit different, but still, I believe that qualified leads are going to be sort of the be-all, end-all when it comes to marketing as a metric. Now, the other area too that I want to talk about that is in relation to that, and maybe a slightly different frame that might make it a little bit easier to understand, is we have the Google algorithm here, and then we have step 1 in your pipeline, step 2 in your pipeline, and then step 3 in your pipeline. This represents the unqualified section, and then as you go further up, they hit step 2, and now they're qualified, step 3, they convert, kind of thing. The distance between the algorithm and step 3 is going to vary based off your business, right? So if it's B2B, it's going to be like this. Or if it's a longer sales cycle, it's going to be like this. If it's a shorter sales cycle, then it might be a lot more like this, right? So it really just depends on the nature of your business, but the frame still stays the same. And so if we were to say, okay, if my sales cycle is really long, so let's say it's over a week and there's a lot more information that needs to be collected, or back and forth that needs to happen, or going out and seeing if you can give them an estimate and scheduling that needs to happen, step 3 is typically not something that I optimize for. And the reason why I don't do that is because it's too far away from the data that the algorithm needs to pretty much target the current user. So think about it this way. If I am, looking for signals, like I'm the algorithm looking for signals, and I have signals from users that were browsing on the internet or searching 3 or 4 weeks ago. Those types of signals are going to be different than people that are browsing now in the current state of things. And the further range that you go out from, the greater the, difference is going to be. And so what I found is that step 3, if it is past a week out, is a little bit harder for the algorithm to optimize for, because the signals are very much delayed. And so it doesn't put as much weight on those signals. Whereas if you're on step 2, this, let's say, is just qualified leads. This is a lot closer in the cycle, right? We're talking, we can figure out if a lead's qualified, ideally within like 48 hours in most cases. Now, there is, obviously, and I'm always thinking about, potential flaws with this, but I'm just gonna, say it because I think it's important, is that if, for example, you have someone that is qualified, but they haven't proven that they're qualified, I would still say, okay, maybe your vetting process on step 1 needs to be a lot better, right? So if someone needs to have X amount of net worth and they're saying, I have all this money to buy this house, but then they actually don't, then you're probably not, you need to find a better way to filter from step 1 to step 2 kind of thing. So besides the point, step 2 for the most part is typically just going to be qualified leads, and this is going to be easier for the algorithm to latch onto because you can feed back the information within a week, let's say. If we get to the point now, like I was saying earlier, where you're going from step 2 to step 3, that is mostly going to be the sales team, right? So this is an area where I've seen a lot of businesses fail, and really this just kind of illuminates a lot of the problems that need to be fixed first before ads should even be ran in the first place. So what I mean by sales is I don't necessarily mean just the salesperson. I just mean the process of following up, contacting the lead, and making sure that obviously you are top of mind and they're not going to go to a competitor in the meantime. So this issue is no longer now a marketing issue. And this is where I get frustrated a lot with lead gen, but then I also see a lot of other people get frustrated, is because they optimize and they do their job, but then there's other business metrics that are actually the issue in the first place. I think this is extremely important to help through the process, and this is why I think the agencies that focus on things that are more pipeline based are in a way better position than people that are just using the algorithm as a way to sort of measure the impact versus actually driving the impact and tracking the pipeline from the actual business itself, right? And so if we're to look at it from this perspective versus, this perspective, the concept still stays the same, is that we want to import in qualified leads to the algorithm so we can train the algorithm how to go after more of those users and let the sales problem be the business issue or the sales issue, right? Because we can send as much qualified leads as possible, but we're not really going to always sell the leads. Now, you can get into the conversation, like I just said earlier, where, in my scenario, right? So like I'm B2B, right? I'm an agency and I'm trying to find more people that are going to want to work with me. And so I'll put videos out like this, right? And so I'll say that, here's results X, Y, and Z, like on our C Pro Growth channel where we have, all the evidence of it kind of thing, is here's XYZ reason why we did this, and here's how we can help your business, and this is, evidence of it kind of thing. That is part of the educational process, even maybe going from step 2 to step 3, because people might not, have enough trust to say, okay, I'm qualified, but I'm not sold yet. So there are other things that you can do as a marketer to kind of pull people to be in that step 3 and sort of support the sales team, and not necessarily have to have a ton of issues when it goes to trying to sort of pull information out of the qualified lead, even if it's qualified. So I'm not saying that marketing is totally done at step 2. I just know that in most cases the difference between these two is mainly a pipeline or sales or follow-up email sort of issue kind of thing versus a marketing issue. So with that being said, I want to give you guys, like I said, just some quick context on this as to what, I'm really going to be pushing for in 2026. I've been doing it in 2025. I'm going to really be pushing it harder and harder, and that is just importing in qualified leads. If you are not able to import in qualified leads, you need to figure out your CRM first before you end up pushing more on Google Ads, because you're going to run yourself into a bad situation where you are just going to be getting, oh my gosh, CPA is amazing, 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 and you're going to lose thousands of dollars because you did not feed the algorithm the right information, even though the algorithm looks like it's doing a really good job. With that being said, check your P&L, always watch your pipeline, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.